Welcome to the Here We Grow Again podcast, your source for mental health, self-help, and personal growth advice. I'm your host, Elizabeth Perkins. I'm a pastor's wife, mom of four, and a graduate student studying to become a licensed professional counselor. Each week, I'll bring you strategies and guidance to help you find balance and confidence in your life. Join us as we explore the power of personal growth and learn how to tackle the challenges of life that leave us saying, "Here we grow again." Hi, guys, and welcome back to my podcast, Here We Grow Again. This one's going to be a little bit different. For those of you who are able to watch this via YouTube or maybe a reel on TikTok or something, you're going to see the video. For those of you listening via one of the platforms, you won't see my video, but do know it's here if you want to see it somewhere. So you're going to take a walk with me. I want to show you guys that I just put on. I don't know how to flip the camera here. So I'm just going to turn the camera and show you here. These are the shoes that I'm going to tell you a story about as we walk. So today is National or World Suicide Awareness Day. It started in 2003, and it's one of the initiatives of the World Health Organization. And it is also to bring awareness that suicide prevention also needs to be on a local level, that we need to speak up, that it needs to be you and I. And so I did not know until today that it was, this Suicide Prevention and Awareness Day. And I thought, what better day than to share my story with you, because it's been exactly 365 days today. On this Tuesday of September last year, literally 1 year ago, I took a walk in these tennis shoes, and that is the last time I had them on. I had been going through some stuff, and we went to a conference, and God had spoke to me after many, many years of pain and anger, depression and anxiety. God had spoke to me and said, "I'm going to heal you, but it's going to be a process." Okay, so in my infinite nursing wisdom, and I've told you this before on one of my first podcasts, that I quit 200 milligrams of my SSRI medication, cold turkey. Extremely unwise. Do not do this. You should be tapered down by a professional. If you're going to be put back on something else, tapered back up with that. So I did not follow any of this wise advice for myself, because, sometimes we just think we're above that, right? They say nurses are the worst patients. I would agree. So I am taking you on the exact walk that I walked last year. And God had told me he'd heal me, be a process. And then the following weekend, I'm at Ladies' Conference, and the minister's up there, and she's speaking, and God said, "That's going to be you." And I'm not one of these people who always says, "Oh, I heard God say." I'm really not. It's kind of a struggle for me, to be honest. So he says, "This is going to be you." Did not know what that meant. It was Saturday. And Sunday, some things had happened in our personal lives. I was tired. I was hurt. I was angry. I was angry with the church. Therefore, I was angry at God. You got to remember, when you come off medication cold turkey, you go from having all this support in your brain to nothing. You just nosedive, right? So my brain had been used to being, happy hormones to help me not feel depressed for a long time. I was on one of the highest doses of Zoloft, and I'm now having to feel everything. And not only that, but I'm in a serotonin withdrawal, not recognizing what's going on with me. And I'm sorry you're hearing me winded. I'm not even sure how I walked this walk like this last year. I'm going to pause here and talk to you for a second. And, God speaks to me. It's going to be me. Some things had happened in our lives. And come Tuesday morning, I wake up, and my husband is off to pray for someone. The kids are being kids. It's a school morning. School mornings are tough, beginning of the school year. And I find myself feeling like I am just so far away. Like I'm not even here, not even present. And I walked out, and I'm yelling to my husband, who's never home in the morning, "Where are you going?" And he's like, "I'm going to pray for somebody." And it was somebody he didn't know. And he'd gotten a call to go pray. And I started screaming, "But I'm right here. I need you." And I head off to grab the kids and get them in the car, and I'm irrational and not really thinking clearly. Again, I'm having a medical crisis. I knew it. I knew I didn't feel safe, but my mental health nurse practitioner had just switched facilities, so I didn't have anybody to manage my meds right then. It's kind of the perfect storm. Really was in a crisis. And unfortunately, those around me just didn't know how to help me. I don't fault them. They just didn't know how to help me. I didn't know how to help me. And so tried to get the kids out to the car. I remember getting in my bare feet, and one of the kids said, "But I don't have a lunch." And I thought, well, I don't even know what to do with that. And I said, "Forget it. You guys aren't going to school today." And I walked back in the house and I went in my room and sat on the bed. A few moments later, just a few minutes after 8, I'd say roughly about 8:03, I look and my SUV's gone, and so are my kids and husband. So my husband must have taken them to school. Here's where I walk straight down to my room and dump the bottle of Xanax and a few muscle relaxers from an accident I had been in. And we guesstimate I took like 5 or 6 milligrams of Xanax. They were all 1 milligram tablets. They had been given to me, I think, after my hysterectomy for some anxiety and just trouble sleeping and all that. And I took that, and I want to say somewhere between 2 and 4 muscle relaxers. Didn't even think about it. Just dumped them in my hand and took them. And I walked into my closet and I put on these shoes that I just showed you that I have not worn since last year. And when I walked in my closet and I grabbed them, I said, "Oh, geez, it doesn't matter which ones you grab. They're just going to carry your body out." Put on my shoes, text my best friend at the time and said, "Thanks for being my best friend. Love you." Text my dad, "Thanks for always being there for me." And then I sent my husband a really long text, but I didn't send it. And along the lines of, "Tell the kids mommy was sick and I'm so sorry." Because at this point, I was convinced that my family was better off without me, that I could no longer hinder them with my mental instability, my depression, anxiety, anger. I couldn't do it anymore. It wasn't fair to them. Would I have been in this state had I not taken myself off of my SSRI cold turkey? Probably not, because I truly didn't have suicidal ideations. But a symptom of this serotonin discontinuation syndrome is suicidal ideations. So again, for those that aren't watching the video, and just listening to the podcast, I am walking, and I am walking on the road. I am walking the exact path I took a year ago after swallowing a bottle of pills. So I know my family's safe. I've texted my husband, but I don't send the message. I just leave it. I leave my phone and my watch on my middle of my bed, and I walk out my door. Anybody who knows me knows that I love my children more than anything in this world, and I would die for them. I love everybody, but I don't trust anybody with my kids but me. I'm mama, and those are my babies. But at that moment, I really felt they were just so much better off without me, that I was damaging their lives. I was ruining them. And there are people who've never dealt with these thoughts. And for those of you who have not, thank God you haven't. I hope you never do. But for those of you who have, or who know someone who has, I feel like a lot more people are affected by suicide than we know, the thought of suicide. So I walk out my door and I don't even look back. Now, when I initially said I was going to stop and talk to you because I was already out of breath, I was at the top of the hill close to my house. And I had already started feeling the effects of all that medication. I don't drink. I've never done drugs. So those things for me it hit me hard, like pretty quick. I saw my neighbor backing out of her driveway and I turned my head down. I'm like, "Don't talk to me. Don't stop me." And I just kept walking. And as I walked up that hill, and this is what the view is, okay? So it's gorgeous, but nothing looks like this when you are so miserable and depressed and certain that death is the only way out. I walked up the hill back that way that I was out of breath, and I just kept saying, "God, I'm so sorry. My poor babies. God, I'm so sorry. My poor babies. God, I'm so sorry. My poor babies." Over and over and over and over again. And so I was walking this way, and I remember looking around. It was 8 something in the morning, and I thought, shoot, people are going to be getting up and heading out for work. And I remember thinking, I've got to get out of the plain sight of view. I got to get out of every line of view because I was definitely walking impaired. I knew I was having a hard time staying in a straight line. Really just wasn't in my right mind in any way, shape, or form. So if I was smarter, I'd probably be able to figure out how to turn this camera to show you, but I'm going to show you here. This is what I saw, and this is what I walked up on. You can see these barns back here in this line of trees, and I thought, great, this is my opportunity. Okay, this is my opportunity to get out of the line of sight of people driving. No one will find me. Again, it's really weird. I can think about all the things I was thinking, yet I felt so far from myself, so far removed. I walked back this walk crying, heartbroken, feeling the heaviness of the world, the weight on my shoulders, just knowing I wasn't good enough. Not good enough for my husband, not good enough for my kids, not good enough to be a pastor's wife. I'm going to interject right there. Y'all, it is not easy being a pastor's wife. It's not easy being in any kind of leadership position. It's not just being a pastor's wife. It's being anything that has attention drawn to you where there's an expectation of perfection. And whether that expectation is placed by others or yourself. So many times I held myself to a standard that was just unattainable, even if others weren't holding me to it. And unfortunately, there was a history from my childhood of just not ever dealing with pain and situations from my childhood. You know, my mom and I have reconciled these things, and I don't fault her. She was doing the best she could at the time. And she had her own struggles she was facing. But, excuse me, not ever dealing with those traumas and the neural development and things that happened in my childhood. I just never had good emotional regulation. Really never knew how to regulate my emotions. So through this process, I've had to open my eyes to the fact that I needed a lot of help in learning how to regulate my emotions, learning how to self-soothe. So kind of going off on a little tangent here. I keep hearing animals by this big barn here. And unfortunately, this is somebody else's property. And I actually reached out trying to get permission to walk back here, and I never did hear back from them. I know they don't live locally, so I by no means have any intentions of trying to trespass. I just want to share what happened a year ago here. If you can see down there, I looked down in there and I thought, well, you could crawl up there. Nobody's going to find you. And again, I am really shocked how far I walked, as impaired as I was, because look how long and big this field is. And we've got a long ways until I get to where I passed out. So let me take you back a little bit where God spoke to me, said, this is going to be you, okay? And then we're at Tuesday, a year ago today, where I took this medication and decided I was better off dead. Again, do I know if it would have happened this way had I not taken myself off medication or not? No, I don't know. But either way, this is the story. This is the way it happened. And this is now my testimony. So I'm going to share it. So it was not this nice last year, by the way. It was cold and it was rainy because I woke up very wet. My whole body was wet. I was bruised. Now, I don't know, and I'm sure somebody out there can help me understand if crops cycle. I think they do. But this is not what was here last year. There was corn. I don't know what this is. So there was very tall corn stalks. I remember feeling very well hidden and appreciated feeling hidden. And so anyhow, we're on this Tuesday. I'm on this walk. I'm no longer thinking about how God will heal me and it'll be a process, or that I felt called to be whoever this person was at ladies' conference, you know. Oh, this is going to be you. Well, Lord, what does that mean? And so I don't even know if I can get back there to show you exactly where I was, because the way the crops have changed here. I am almost positive I can't, but we'll keep walking and talking here for a minute. I'm walking, I'm desperate, I'm sad, I'm unfortunately extremely disoriented. So I'm going to actually just walk up here and show you where I went, because I don't think that I can get there. I think the crops changing has made it so that I cannot. But there are some trees right behind where the sun is, right there. It's still a pretty good hike. And I got back there, and they had just been running very much like what I feel now. They'd been running big machinery, and there was some ruts, and I must have tripped and passed out. Mind you, I left my house about 8 o'clock, and a couple hours later, I wake up. I remember waking up briefly thinking, I've got to find somewhere dry. And I stumbled around, looked for a dry log or anything just to kind of like drape myself across, because I knew that I was wet and uncomfortable, but yeah, there wasn't much of a thought process there. So I found somewhere else, took the jacket I had on off and laid on it, I do believe. That part's a little fuzzy. So must have fell asleep again for a while, woke up somewhere a couple hours later, get up and decide, I wake up feeling very scared and thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to get home. And so I make this trek back and I start walking back towards my house. And I got to the end of the road, which now you see I'm pretty far from, back past that barn. And I get to the end of the road and I see my husband's truck go by. I'm like, maybe he was looking for me. And I just keep walking, dragging my jacket behind me. And is it Lioness or Lionel or something from Charlie Brown? That's kind of what I reminded myself of, just dragging along my jacket. And these shoes are still covered in the mud. I don't know if you can see this, but there is mud all over these shoes because this field was soaking wet and I caked my shoes. I mean, my feet were sloshy, and as I was walking back, it was gross. And I remember walking back and I get too close to my house and I see my mother-in-law outside and I see my husband's truck. And I looked around and thought, crud, where can I go to get away from everybody? And realized my mother-in-law had seen me. So with my head down, I make it the rest of the way home. And my husband says, he looks at me and he throws his hands up in the air and says, this was my last straw with you. And him and I have come to terms with this. I have come to terms with this. He was in a desperate spot. So was I. I have forgiven him. He didn't know what to say. I mean, he was, it is what it is. He didn't know what to say. And so when he said, this is, final straw, I'm done with you, or done with this, I threw my hands up. I said, yeah, me too. And I'm screaming hysterically, I can't do this anymore. I can't be a pastor's wife anymore. I can't do this anymore. I can't handle people hating me. I can't take it. And it was like right at that moment, like the words appeared before me, which they didn't, but in my mind, rejection and abandonment. And if you've listened to my previous podcasts, you've heard me talk about this, but it was at that moment that God said to me, you have dealt with rejection and abandonment your whole life. I don't even recall knowing what abandonment was or ever using the word. In my mind, I probably used it, somebody abandoned their dog, or I just really never used that word in my vocabulary. I'm sitting there, my husband goes back inside, and my mother-in-law's like, honey, and I'm going, no, I can't do this. And, I'm just hysterical. And she goes, I'm calling the police and an ambulance. And I went, no. She goes, you're having a nervous breakdown. I said, no, I am off my medication. I am in withdrawal. Something's wrong with me. I can feel it. I am sick. I am unwell. And again, I'm going to remind you, I'm having what I didn't know at the time was a serotonin discontinuation syndrome. And I'm sick. I am extremely, extremely sick. I had the physical symptoms the week before. The nausea, vomiting, dizziness, crying, tearfulness, all these things. And then it sunk to a deep, deep, deep depression and then almost like a disassociation where and that's what happened on that day. So my mother-in-law calls an ambulance and the police show up and I am highly embarrassed because my neighbors can see this and I'm going, no, I'm a nurse, thinking for some reason my brain was thinking like I hold a license with the state, like don't do this to me. I don't know. I was irrational. And police come and all I remember is them having black gloves and their arms crossed, at their wrists. And I said, let me guess, I don't go with you, you're going to pink slip me. And I get a nod. And the ambulance driver's like, ma'am, we're going to take you over to the hospital. I had given up at this point. What was I going to do? Couldn't fight, couldn't run, too exhausted. So I get in, they load me up on the gurney, and they're putting me in the ambulance, and I look at the driver, and I say, what time is it? And this part's a little foggy now, but it was either 11:13 or 11:40 something. So somewhere in that 11 o'clock range, or 11:33. It was either 11:13, 11:33, or 11:43, something like that. And I remember being startled because I thought, oh my gosh, it's been hours that I passed out. And he loads me up in the ambulance, and this gentleman gets in the back with me. My mother-in-law says she'll follow us there. And he says, honey, did you want to kill yourself? And I said, I don't think so. I just needed it to stop. I needed it all to stop. I can't constantly do this to my kids. I can't constantly be worthless. I was so tired of the pain and rejection from people. And it hurt so deep, coupled with coming off of my antidepressant, that I just couldn't take it. And I told him, I said, I don't think I wanted to die. However, that's the path I had chosen that day. And so he says, well, and he said, why did you do this? I said, I can't be a pastor's wife anymore. I can't live under the scrutiny anymore. I can't, and this is just what I said. I'm not saying being a pastor's wife is terrible. It's not. It just comes with its growing pains as well, just like anything. So he says, oh, my wife and I help pastor a church. She would never let us quit. To which I gave the man a slow clap. I went, well, congratulations. So my sarcasm still rang true, even though I was slightly impaired. And he says, what church are you guys at? And I said, I'm not telling you that. And I said, oh, I even know in this state to protect the church name and my husband, like, don't look like you got it all wrong here. Don't look like you're not put together. You better protect. And so I didn't tell the church name. When he tells me the name of their church, and I thought, oh, shoot. And he goes, can I pray for you? And I went, no, because I was angry. Did you know the pastors' wives can get angry at God? No? Okay, well, now you do. So I more so was angry with the church. Okay, I was angry with the position. I was angry with myself. I was angry with others. I did not even know how to define what I was feeling at this point. And so I thought, prayer, no. Heck no, that's the last thing I want. I must have dozed off. It's a short ride from here to the hospital, but I fell asleep. And I wake up and he asks me again, can I pray for you? I thought, dear goodness, this man just isn't gonna, he's relentless. And I said, fine. Like, mostly to shut him up. Some of these Christians, man, they can be pushy with their prayer. I'm just teasing, but, he said, can I pray for you? So he did. I remember a very vague prayer. I was kind of in and out of it. They take me into the ER. The ER is full. Okay. They triage me, ask me the same questions. Did you want to die? What did you take? Blah, blah, blah. And I repeat the same thing. And I also say, I am in a crisis. I took myself off my medications. Something's not right. I am not well. I need my psychiatric, medication provider. But they've moved locations. I don't know what to do. And she says, well, we're busy. So I'm going to give you this slip and you can sit in the waiting room until they can call you back. And I said, I've worked in the ER before. I know what you're going to do. I'm going to get put on a 72-hour hold. I'm going to sit here until you can find a crisis center for me. And I thought, this just isn't going to work out. And so I sit in the waiting room and my mother-in-law says, I've got to go smoke. And so she goes outside and I walk up to the girl at the desk and I said, if I leave, am I in trouble? She goes, no. So I walk my happy tail right out of the ER. And my mother-in-law's out there smoking her cigarette. And she goes, what are you doing? I said, well, they said that, I can contact some community resources if I need it and speak to their caseworker if I need to, and that I'm free to go. Yeah, I just lied to her. She knows that now. And so she took me home and I showered, cried, and then slept from like 1-something in the afternoon until the next morning. There's some more details after that, which just aren't worth even really going into on here. It wasn't good. The next day I wake up still in a crisis and I'm still in serotonin withdrawal. My husband's at work. I have to take care of children. I get them to school. I had been posting things on social media, crying out for help. And I don't even really remember what I posted. My husband did delete those. Again, and we've worked through all this, but he didn't want our business out there. He didn't want our kids at school and our church and the people we know to see this side of me. So it was probably one of the scariest days of my life, even more so than the day before, because I felt so out of control, so scared. I was extremely reckless. Friends had stopped me at the school and said, we can't let you leave like this. And I assured them I was fine. I'm going to go try to find my doctor. Well, I drove there. The doctors wouldn't get me in unless I saw their counselor first. And I looked at the woman at the desk and said, I tried to kill myself. Is that what I have to do again to get any answers here? Again, guys, I'm in a desperate place. I called someone who's a close friend and I screamed and cried to her on the phone and said, I just can't do this anymore. And my husband found me and I pulled off again. I drove somewhere over 100 miles an hour. A very good friend finally convinced me to meet her. We meet at a Dunkin' Donuts, and lo and behold, the police show up there. They had pinged my car, my location. Lord, I'm naive. Didn't even know half this stuff could happen. She was trying to help me. I had already put myself back on 50 milligrams of that medication that morning. This friend had a big water for me. She's like, you got to drink, you got to drink, you got to drink. She's reaching out. She's praying for me. She's just being such a good, kind, genuine friend. Why it was her that finally got me to stop what I was doing. I mean, I was clear up in Cortland. And she goes, meet me at this Dunkin' Donuts. And we meet there. I put on my game face, convince those police that I'm fine, that I don't need to go down to the local hospital. And the gentleman shares with me that he had found his wife who had committed suicide. And as much as that broke my heart for him, I'm in my mind going, that's not me though. I just want to go home. I needed to maintain control, right? So I pick up my kids. My husband has me go to church that night. I keep my head down, buried in the back corner, desperately wanting help, not knowing what kind of help I need. And so it gets better. I end up getting into a new doctor. My husband actually took off work, found somebody, went in, had an appointment himself, got me in there. We discussed everything. And, people truly lose their lives over situations like that. They do commit suicide and are successful when they've come off medications like that. And not even meaning to. I mean, guys, had I not woke up, I didn't want to die. That was not my intentions. I didn't know how to handle all of the pain and the emotional dysregulation from coming off those medications. So I remember taking these shoes off and looking at them and putting them up on my bookshelf. And I said, one day I'm going to set these somewhere in front of somebody and I'm going to say, these are the shoes I put on to walk to my death. And they are the shoes that also carried me right back home. And I decided that today was the perfect day, the 1 year anniversary, to put these shoes back on. Okay. And walk back home in them. Because I have so much to be thankful for. 1 year later, I'm alive. And I am well because all of this situation forced me to go into therapy. It was kind of like a you're going. The mental health nurse practitioner I was seeing said, here's the name of someone I know. She does a lot of trauma-focused therapy. I'm going to give you your number. I'm going to get you indoor. So within a few days, I get in to see this counselor and saw her weekly for the last year. Honestly, we're just now going to kind of start breaking up to go monthly. And so let me kind of digress to when I was at this ladies' conference and God said, that's going to be you. Guys, I had no idea what going to school to be a mental health counselor looked like. Here I am, 1 year to the day. Today was my first day in my own office as a counselor intern, a mental health counselor intern, working at a private practice until next August or the foreseeable future, but at least through my internship. Because I want to help people find the root issues to their pain, just like my counselor has done for me. So I want to encourage somebody to not only go see a counselor, therapist for themselves, to not feel the shame in that, to be okay being vulnerable enough to share some of those hurts in your life, to know that you don't have to appear perfect to everybody. For so many years, my husband and I wouldn't see counselors because we went one time to a marriage counselor and we thought, in a very, 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 first, second year of marriage, and we thought, well, we represent Christ. We cannot let our guard down. We can't look like bad examples. We can't not let our light shine. God didn't make a mistake when he made you. People in the Bible went through hard times. Quit thinking that you have to be perfect. You don't. You don't have to be perfect. Take that weight off. Allow yourself to be okay in your imperfection. Because in my imperfection, I found myself. I found my worth. I found who I was. I sat with an ever-patient therapist who helped me find what my values were, helped me find out who I was as a person, helped me find out what mattered to me, helped me process pain, trauma, grief. Now, guys, I don't want to make it just sound like counseling's the answer to everything. I had to put a heck of a lot of work in, a lot of work. 1 hour a week is not enough to change 30 some odd years of thinking. I kind of dived in. It became my journey. She had suggested I journal. I did. Journaled everything I thought and felt. The good, the bad, the ugly. And I got books on retraining my thinking. I started school to be a counselor. I'm not saying you have to do all these things. I'm saying that put the work in. I never, ever thought that I could not be an angry person. I never thought that I could get over rejection, abandonment, fear of failure. There's still a little bit of that there. We're human, okay? And we are always going to be on a journey of healing, learning to love ourselves. For most of the summer, I wouldn't do podcasts because I felt like a fraud. Like, nobody really wants to hear what you have to say. And last weekend, I really just felt like, I went through this for a reason. God has given me a beautiful testimony to share. I want to share the hope with others that there is the possibility of change. You can change. It's hard, but it's so worth it. The hard work doesn't compare. I'd relive this whole last year, all the ups and downs, than to ever have to live another day in those pre-healed years. I'm not saying I'm healed completely, okay? Again, going to constantly be changing and growing. We have setbacks. There's some days I feel like I fail greatly, but I also learned that a single moment doesn't define my forever. I'm not my past. I'm really not my future. I've learned how to be my present self. If you have things you need to work through, yes, God's the almighty counselor, wonderful. He's all the things, okay? But he also gave us people to help us, teach us tools. Counselors don't give you advice. They teach you tools. They teach you to look inside, to look at things and to help you change some of these neural pathways, some of these things that were developed that were out of your control, that were developed during your childhood, when maybe others couldn't support you in the way you needed to during your emotional development years. And counselors help you look inside and go, okay, we're going to retrain your thinking. And I'm telling you, I can actually feel and see the difference in how I process things now. There is hope. If someone around you is going through some things, encourage them to see a counselor. That doesn't mean they're not a good Christian, doesn't mean that you're not a good spouse or a good friend, or that you've failed them or that they have failed. It means they need some new tools in their toolbox. When, we use this example a lot in mental health, and I have personally, but if you have high blood pressure, you don't go see, somebody at the shoe store to help you fix it, do you? No. Well, maybe. Tennis shoes, walking, cardio. Okay, we can go that way. But no, when you have high blood pressure, you go see, family doctor, cardiologist. You have, an artery blocked. You got to see a cardiologist to fix that. You have a broken bone. You got to see an orthopedic doctor, orthopedic surgeon. Okay. Same thing with mental health. Guys, for being 2024, we still are so far behind in the mental health world. It is okay to remember that your brain is an organ that needs a little help sometimes. Okay. Go find yourself a mental health therapist. Now, doesn't mean that every therapist and every client are a good fit for each other. You may have to try a few before you find the right person. Thank God I found the right one. And a lot of it may not have been her being exactly the right one, more so being the right time. And as she always tells me, you were ready. If you're ready, you're not going to let anything stop you or get in your way from change. So if you don't like therapists you see the first time, try a different one. You don't like the family doctor you had the first time, you find a different one, right? See if you can interview the counselor ahead of time. Some of them will offer you a free, 10, 15-minute consult on the phone. Look them up on Psychology Today. If you're in my area, really, if you're anywhere and you need help finding someone, comment in the podcast section or on my Facebook or Instagram, Here We Grow Again page, and I will help you find somebody. I believe that not only do we need the tools that a mental health professional can provide for us, but we also need to learn to find support within ourselves and to have open communication with those around us. So I've kind of gone off on a lot of different topics here, and it may or may not have all made sense. And you're probably going to hear a lot of my heavy breathing as I'm walking. Again, I'm just so shocked that I walked this way and paired a year ago in the cold. Must have fell face first into that dirt. Just absolutely amazes me I walked that way, because here I am a year later, 20 some odd pounds later, and still struggling to breathe in my right mind on a nice warm day. So I wanted to take the opportunity to share that full story with you. Somebody just commented on my Instagram today. I shared a picture of me in my therapy office, just kind of talking about the redemption story and the grace of God. You know, it's like a beautiful story only God could write through this last year. And someone who I don't know, I mean, if I do know her, her face does not look familiar, her name does not sound familiar. It doesn't even show that I'm following her on Instagram, but she said, "Your testimony saved me. I've listened to your podcast on repeat." And that really encouraged me. I had been wanting to do this, and I thought, you know what? You've been waiting to be perfect to share your testimony. You've been waiting to have the perfect background or backdrop and the right mic and the right tools and know more about podcasting before you've shared anymore. And I decided, in typical Elizabeth fashion, forget that. I'm just going to do it right now because this woman encouraged me. And here comes my beautiful daughter that, thank you, Jesus, I get to raise. I hope you all have a great night. And if you are in crisis and need to talk to someone, but reach out to somebody. It's going to be okay. It's a hard day today, but it doesn't mean you have a hard forever. Okay? Yes, yeah. And our stories may not be the same, but that doesn't mean that there's no help for your situation. You are worth waking up tomorrow. You are. And you may not realize it right this second, but one day you are going to look back and realize it. And I hope that you can come back here and share your testimony with me. All right, y'all. Have a beautiful night.